This conference will now be recorded.
All right, everyone. Today, your webinar hosts from OWL are Phil Wan. He's the product manager at OWL Cyber Defense, and David Musini. He's the senior sales engineer at OWL Cyber Defense. So today, Phil will be taking you through a training on OPDS-Talon. Phil leads the product development. He led the product development and execution of OPDS-Talon. So he'll be walking you through the major enhancements and new features of the software platform. And once Phil is finished today, David Musini, the senior sales engineer at OWL Cyber Defense, will walk you through a demo of the OPDS-Talon software platform. David leads our customer demos for our OPDS product line. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Phil Wan to everyone.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Phil Wan. I am the product manager. My responsibility at the company revolves around the core platform. So that is the, and
1 second, we're having a technical difficulty.
So while Aileen's taking care of the slides, I'll continue with the description. So I'm responsible for the core platform that consists of the hardware platform as well as the software that runs on the platform. And that's a nice segue to talking about the OPDS-Talon and what exactly it is. So the OPDS-Talon is a new name, but it is the same secure software that has run on OPDS products from the beginning. The software is based on the OWL Security Enhanced Linux as well as the CentOS Linux technology. We call it Ocelin CentOS, but it adheres to CIS benchmarks, and it has been hardened to suit the purpose of this implementation. So at a high level, the OPDS-Talon is the software layer that runs on top of the OPDS data diode hardware, and it runs across the complete OPDS product line. And so another way of thinking about it is a software platform or a software layer that really adds an additional protective layer on top of the hardware enforced data diode. It secures the transfer of data across the network boundaries, if you will. So the boundary being between the OT and the IT networks, the OPDS product line, and the OPDS-Talon that runs on top of that would secure that network boundary. And some additional, I guess, functionality would be that it also would interface with within the OT network your other OT solutions, and it forms an extensible foundation, if you will, for support of various protocols and interfaces that run within your OT environment. And the extensible part is important because as you implement new technologies and new protocols and proxies, the OPDS-Talon will be flexible where we would implement new modules or new software applications that run on top of the OPDS-Talon software layer and would be able to meet all your future needs as well as your current needs. And in other slides, I'll talk about the proxies that are supported on the platform, but you know, it supports basic features like remote file transfer, whether it's TCP or UDP based, but you know, we support UDP unicast as well as multicast, syslogs, SNMP traps, you know, all those common proxies. On the next slide, I'll talk about a defense in-depth strategy and approach that we support. And as the last bullet points out, it's compatible with all our OPDS products. That's everywhere from the 100 up to our 1,000 and enterprise solutions, as well as our DIN rail based 5D and 100D product. So let's talk about what is at the core of all our products in terms of the concept of layered security. I think everybody would agree that not one solution is sufficient to meet everybody's needs, and as such, we provide or start with a hardware based layer protecting your networks. And as I mentioned before, that is based on the data diode concept. It's hardware enforced with protocol breaks through the interfaces that strips out any sort of routing information. And then layered on top of that is what we're discussing today, the OPDS-Talon software. And it enables one-way secure transfer of data. I think another one that's very important to mention is that regardless of what versions you may have, I think the 2.0.1.3 was a fairly full-featured software release that we had, and the OPDS-Talon builds upon all the features and functions that the 2.0.1.3, I'm just going to say 2013 for shortcut, the 2013 release had. And the OPDS-Talon 2020 release, which is the latest release, really adds some additional enhancements that I'll begin discussing in the next slide. So in our latest release, the 2020 release, as we call it, of the OPDS-Talon, the major enhancements is the concept of simplifying navigations, where all our menu options have been improved, refined to ease the usability of our software interface. David Messini's presentation or demo of the software should show you, but we've tried to in many instances as possible, go away from a command line changes and interface with our software and try to bring it up to a higher level where through menu interfaces, you could do many of the configurations and setups of the software, whereas before you had to flip from one mode to another, and depending on your comfort factor with VI editors and so forth, maybe it wasn't as a big impediment, but however, by bringing it up to a menu level, I think we reduced the possibility and potential mistakes, just common mistakes, whether it's just as simple as a mistyped character or just exiting before things were saved, or you cut and pasted incorrectly. You know, all of those potential error cases, we try to remove those possibilities by trying to be menu driven as much as possible. There's also where we have, through the menu, allowed easy methods to configure third-party applications. The OSI Pi software is one of our most popular software module, the OPTS, and we now allow configuration of that application via the menu. So that was a big improvement. There are other third-party applications that can be configured through the menu, such as the OPC server transfer service is another one, Rolls-Royce, eDNA, or RTime. I think if you have questions of what are all supported, you'll have opportunities in addition to the ones I mentioned. I know that David is familiar with how to best configure them. So please save your questions to the end. We've also simplified, common configuration procedures like FTP, as well as the RFTS and SNTS configurations. And I'll also talk in future slides about having easy access to network diagnostic tools that you use on a consistent daily basis, and having the easy access via the menu rather than having to go into the VI editor. So this may be a little bit of an eye chart for you, but I will attempt to describe that. So in the upper rectangular space, if you will, it talks about or tries to highlight how we've improved the software update and software rev information. Whereas in the past, if you had an issue or you wanted to check what a rev of the OPDS software you had, whether it was 2013 or 2020 or even previous versions, you had to really search for where it was. And through this menu option, the number one up top talks about viewing the OS information. And from there, you should be able to check the what version of the CentOS you have, as well as the OPDS-Talon 2020 in this latest rev. And it also talks about this this patch cluster, which is the second arrow pointing in blue. The concept of patch cluster is something new. In the past, you had to do a fresh install of the software when you wanted to update, but we have implemented a procedure to patch the software and get the latest updates. So these are RPM patches that would make the updating process much easier and customer friendly. So that's something that is worth noting. It also allows you to install the updates via the menu, and I think that would help for those customers that would like to do the software updates on your own. On the bottom two rectangles or squares, it shows the way to access the diagnostics that I mentioned before, and it also introduces the concept of role-based access control, if you will, on a higher level. So on the left, you have the highest level access based upon role, the IAO role, and you have the full library or menu of diagnostics that can be accessed, whereas just a console level access allows you to just view the TCP connections and check the diagnostics that way. So that is a concept that was established in 2013, but this is a good menu-based look at that role-based access, as well as how to access the diagnostics. So continuing on that theme of the role-based access control, we have introduced a concept of mode-based access. So on the left, you have the maintenance mode, and then on the right, you have the same menu, but now access in a operational mode. And as you can see on the right, the option of installing the system updates have been deleted or not made visible because in the operational mode, you shouldn't be obviously updating your system software. So it just prevents potential error or confusion of one, in the past, we might have shown the option of the install system updates, but when you tried to act upon it, it was disabled in the operational mode. Now we've just cleared up that confusion altogether by removing it from the menu option altogether. So hopefully this will make things a little more straightforward for you guys and avoid any confusion. Oh, am I in the maintenance mode or am I in the operation mode? You know, what is actionable will be presented in the mode that you're in. So let's try to now summarize everything that we've gone over so far. So I just mentioned in the previous slide the server mode-based menu presentation, whether you're in the maintenance mode or in the operation mode. In the beginning, I talked about the software update process and being able to access that and to execute the software updates via the menu option, and the concept of software patches rather than a complete install, which would make the updating process much cleaner and straightforward. Also, we have improved the performance and stability of the software. I think the two worth mentioning are the RFTS and SNTS. These are our standard transfer services that come built into the OPDS-Talon. They have been improved for stability primarily, and some performance tweaks. And the rev of those versions are noted there. I think you should be able to read it as 2690 for the RFTS and the 2680 for the SNTS. So far, we've really talked about the software base, but in addition to all that, all the applications that are supported in the past, and I don't want to do a line-by-line reading of all the bullet points, but everything that has been supported in the past, we are continuing to support. I mentioned the RFTS and SNTS, but whether it's the file transfers, using FTP or SFTP or the other alarms and services, we support all of that. So nothing has been dropped in this rev of the OPDS-Talon software. Finally, I'd like to talk about and just go over the OPDS platforms that we do support. So if you have had experience with our OPDS software in the past, it wasn't that obvious what software ran on which hardware. But here, it captures at a snapshot the fact that OPDS-Talon runs not only on the DIN rail solutions, the 5D and the 100D, but it also runs on our 100, the 1000 and the EPDS. Those are our core platforms. It also runs on the 100 MP. However, it's worth noting that the Recon product that has been launched recently runs its own software layer, and there are a lot of commonalities, but the OPDS-Talon by itself does not run on Recon. Also, before I conclude, I do want to mention the fact that even though we're introducing the OPDS-Talon, that it is not a standalone product in the sense that you can't just buy the OPDS-Talon software in a CD. It comes as part of our OPDS hardware products when you purchase it. You also have the option of updating the software on your existing OPDS platforms. However, we encourage you to purchase the software update and the technical support packages, and that will enable you to update your old outdated software with this latest rev and all its features and functionality. If you have any questions about that, I'd be glad to answer that, because it could be a little confusing of what you have and what you currently have the option of. So be glad to address it.
Okay, so that was it for Phil. So now we'll move on to the demo video of the OPDS-Talon software platform done by David Musini, our senior sales engineer.
Hello, my name is David Musini. I'm a senior sales engineer here at OWL Cyber Defense. So what we're going to do is we're going to log into the system so I can show you the main menu of the OPDS-Talon product. And I'm going to log in as the IAO role, which is Information Assurance Officer role, which is the highest role you can log in to the system with. And once I'm logged in, you'll see the main menu. And one of the new features we have with this new menu system is you can actually add FTP users. The products before, you only had 5 separate FTP users that are defined, and you could not add any to the system. So I'm going to FTP user management, and you can see there's the 5. And now I'm going to actually add a user. I'm going to add FTP user 6 to the system. And then the system, because of the security policies, asks us for our password again to validate that we're authorized to make this change. And then we're going to enter our password for FTP user 6. And the password is going to be at least 14 characters, upper, lower, and special characters for the password. Now, if we go back, now you can see that FTP user 6 was added, and everything is configured for that new user. You can also go into list exit, and we're all set with the FTP user management. Okay, so now we're going to be logging into the system on the OPDS receive side of the diode. And since we configured the FTP user on the send side, now we have to configure the FTP user on the read side of the diode, or the receive side of the diode. So I have to go down to FTP forwarding. I'm going to list out, I only have 5 here. So now I'm going to go down and configure the new user, which is going to be FTP user 6, which I configured on the blue side or send side of the diode. It's going to ask me to enter the password for that user. It is then going to ask me what is the final destination of the files that are going to be transferred. What is the FTP directory I wish to transfer the files to on the FTP server. Once all that information is inputted, then I can look and see FTP user 6 was added to the system. And now I'm going to go in and do configure FTP user forwarding, and I'm going to look at FTP user 6. And you'll see that the IP address is imported, the password, the username, and the destination directory is all configured through the new interface of the OPDS solution. This video is the configuring the RAM disk for the system. In the past, the system was configured for loading files into memory, and that was a set fixed size, which I'm going to show right here. So it's 768 megabytes. So if customers wanted to send something larger, we had to actually edit this file manually using VI. So now I can just enable the RAM drive, and now the files will be landing on the hard drive of the system and giving you more space for a file transfer. Since we configured the RAM disk on the send side of the diode, now we have to configure the RAM disk on the receive side of the diode, same way we did on the send side. So we're going to go into configure RAM drive. We're going to disable the RAM drive here. Right now it's default to 768 megabytes, so that information gets loaded to memory. We're going to disable it. So that way the files get landed on the receive side diode for a transfer. Once again, it asks me for my security, and now the RAM drive is disabled, and now files will be landing on the internal hard drives of the solution.
So that's it for our demo today by David. So now we will, oh, sorry about that. We'll open the forum for any questions that you may have. Any questions out there? Just make sure you take yourself off mute.
Okay, well, I think if you can think of any questions after you've thought through and maybe download the presentation and gone through it again, we'd be glad to answer them via email. If you would like a demo of this OPDS-Talon at your site, please contact us, and we'd be glad to arrange that for you.
Yeah, that's it. So thank you all for attending. If you have any questions in the meantime, I will be sending out the deck and the webinar, but you can email me at A as in Apple, C as in cat, A, S as in Sam, M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, O as in Orange, at owlcyberdefense.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.